The screen is almost black. A low rumble of thunder rolls through distant clouds. Then, a faint golden light appears on the horizon, like the first breath before dawn. Voiceover.com. Deep and emotional. Every story has a beginning. But this is where everything changes. The road ahead is not just a journey, it's the path that will rewrite eternity. Now the light slowly reveals a figure walking through dust and wind. Jesus. Seen only from behind, the wind carries whispers of the crowd, laughter, cries, prayers echoing like memories fading into silence. Voiceover continues. Before the cross, there was the call. Before the sacrifice, there was the choice. Music begins to rise, a slow blend of strings and drums. Title fades in softly. The Chosen, Season 6, The Journey to the Cross. The sound of footsteps on dry earth. The camera glides low, following dusty sandals across the Galilean hills. The sun burns gold across the sky, a peaceful scene, but the air feels heavy, like something unseen is coming. Voiceover steady, reflective. The days of peace were fading. The miracles that once filled hearts with joy now stirred fear in those who held power. Cut 2. Jesus teaching a crowd near the shore. Faces lean in, eyes filled with awe. His words are soft, yet strong, spoken with the kind of peace that silences storms. Voiceover spoke of forgiveness where others sought revenge. He lifted the broken when the world turned away. But each word, each act of love, made the darkness tremble. Close-up shots. A Roman guard watches from afar, tension in his eyes. A Pharisee whispers to another in the shadows. The crowd cheers, but somewhere, someone plots. Soft wind brushes over Jesus' robe. The camera lingers on his face, calm, knowing, kind. Voiceover somber. He knew what was coming. Every step he took was one step closer to the cross. Yet he never turned away. Scene transitions to a quiet evening. The disciples sit around a small fire, laughter echoing in the night. But Jesus stares into the flames, silent. Voiceover. To them, it was another night. To him, it was one of the last. Soon, the world would change forever. Music shifts, a low hum of strings mixed with a faint heartbeat sound. The camera pans to the horizon, dark clouds forming in the distance. Voiceover. Whisper. The calm before the storm is often the most beautiful. But beauty can't stop what destiny demands. Visual montage. Children running through the village. The sea glimmering under the sun. A mother whispering a prayer. The peace of a world unaware of how close it is to breaking as the music swells. We see Jesus walking away from the camera, heading toward Jerusalem, his silhouette growing smaller as the light fades behind him. Voiceover gentle, emotional. The journey has begun. And soon, love will be tested by suffering. Screen fades to black. The heartbeat's sound lingers a moment longer. Soft rain begins to fall. The ground darkens with each drop. The sound of water echoes across stone streets, Jerusalem waking under gray skies. Voiceover measured, thoughtful. Every word he spoke was light. But light has a way of exposing the shadows. Cut 2. A group of Pharisees in a temple corridor, their faces hidden in half-light. They whisper, their hands clenched behind their backs. Voiceover. The crowds called him Messiah. The rulers called him threat. To some, he was hope. To others, a danger that could not be ignored. Visuals. A Roman soldier presses through the market. Merchants glance nervously. A child clutches her mother's hand. The city breathes with tension, something unseen, but felt by all. Voiceover low, reflective. Power fears what it cannot control. In the kingdom he spoke of, it wasn't made of gold or walls. It was made of hearts that frightened them most. Cut 2. Jesus in a crowded street. People reach for him. He smiles, touches a blind man's face, and sight returns. Gasps rippled through the crowd, not just awe, but fear too. A man in fine robes turns and hurries away. Music shifts, a single cello hums. Beneath the sound of footsteps, voiceover. Every miracle was a sign. Every act of mercy was a strike against the darkness. The world was changing, and not everyone wanted it to. Quick flashes. A hand drops a silver coin on a table. A door closes in the night. Shadows move between torches. The sense of conspiracy thickens. Voiceover stronger, colder. The leaders began to gather. Their question was no longer who is he, but how do we stop him? Scene transition. The disciples around a small table. They speak quietly, uneasy. Peter clenches his fists. Matthew looks away. Jesus listens, but says nothing. His eyes hold the weight of what's coming. Voiceover soft, heavy. They didn't see it yet. The fear, the plans, the path that was being laid. But he did. He always did. The camera slowly circles around Jesus. The faint light flickers on his face, calm, knowing, unbroken in the background. Faint echoes of chanting Hosanna. But the cheers fade into silence, replaced by the sound of hammer on metal, forging weapons. Voiceover hauntingly calm. Every story reaches a point where love must face power, where peace stands before war. And this was that moment. Music swells, strings building with slow drums. The camera pans up to the temple rooftops where crows gather under stormy skies. Voiceover final line, fading. The stage was set. The cross was closer than they knew. Fade to black. A faint sound of wind carries the echo of the word Jerusalem. Night falls over olive trees. The wind whispers through their branches, carrying the scent of earth and rain. The moonlight spills across uneven ground, pale. Cold, still, voiceover soft, reflective, in the quiet of the garden. When the crowds were gone and the noise had faded, only the truth remained. Visual. Jesus kneels alone in the Garden of Gethsemane. His robe clings to the dirt. His hands tremble slightly. In the distance, his disciples sleep, their faces peaceful. Unaware, voiceover, he was the Son of God. But in that moment, he was also a man feeling the weight of what must come. Close up. His eyes lift toward the heavens. His lips move silently. No music, just the sound of breathing and rustling leaves. Voiceover, gentle, sorrowful. He prayed not to escape the pain, but to find the strength to endure it. Cut to flashbacks, laughter by the sea, bread breaking among friends, children running to him, the warmth of simple joy. Then back to the garden, alone again. Voiceover. Every memory, every smile, every soul he touched would soon be tested by the darkness that waited beyond dawn. Scene transition. Mary, his mother, sits near a window, sewing in silence. The candle beside her flickers. She pauses as if she feels something distant, heavy. She closes her eyes and whispers a prayer. Voiceover deep, emotional. A mother's heart always knows. Even without words, she felt the storm moving closer. Cut to Peter pacing under the stars, torn between fear and loyalty. He looks toward the hills, whispering to himself. Voiceover. Faith and fear walk close together. One step apart, and a man can lose himself in either. Music begins softly, a single piano note repeating like a heartbeat. The wind grows louder. Visual. Jesus rises slowly from the ground. His face glows faintly in the moonlight, not from power, but from peace. Voiceover.com, Reverend. He could have called down angels. He could have turned away, but love doesn't run. The camera follows him as he walks toward his sleeping disciples. He pauses, looking at them with quiet affection. Voiceover. They would fail him, betray him, deny him, but he loved them still, without condition, without hesitation. Close up. His hand gently rests on a sleeping shoulder. Voiceover's soft whisper. That's what makes love divine. Lightning flashes across the distant sky, a silent warning of what's coming. The camera slowly tilts upward to the stars, fading into darkness. Voiceover final line. Deep and quiet. The night was not the enemy. It was the beginning of the greatest dawn. Fade out. The piano fades into silence, leaving only the sound of the wind. The night breathes heavy. The moon hangs low, veiled by clouds. Crickets stop. The air stills, as if creation itself holds its breath. Voiceover hushed, trembling. Some storms do not roar. They whisper, and when they do, hearts break in silence. Visual. A torch flickers through the olive trees. Shadows move. The crunch of sandals on dirt. The faint clink of armor. Voiceover slow, heavy. He had chosen 12, and among them, one carried more than silver. He carried guilt wrapped in a kiss. Cut to Judas, his face half lit by torchlight. Sweat glistens. His hand shakes as he clutches a small pouch. The sound of coins faintly jingling echoes like a heartbeat. Camera pans to Jesus, standing still, peaceful. His eyes already know. His silence is not weakness, but surrender to something greater. Voiceover deep. Aching. Betrayal does not begin with hatred. It begins with doubt. And doubt, when left to grow, can destroy even love. Judas steps closer. The torches around him flare. Soldiers emerge from the dark, their spears gleaming like teeth. The garden becomes a prison of light and fear. Voiceover soft. Tense. The world's salvation began with a kiss and chains that never truly held him. Judas leans forward. Their eyes meet. For a moment, time stops. Then, the kiss brief, trembling, eternal, the soldiers rush forward. Shouting fills the night. Peter draws his sword, anger burning through tears. A flash of silver, a cry of pain. Voiceover stronger now. Violence answered love. Fear answered faith, but he answered with mercy. Jesus lifts his hand and touches the wounded soldier. Blood vanishes. Pain fades. Silence returns, heavier than before. Voiceover somber, reflective. Even as the world turned against him, he healed the one sent to bind him. The disciples scatter, feet pounding against the dirt. The torches fade one by one. Only Jesus remains, hands bound, head lifted toward the stars. Cut to Pilate's hall. Cold marble. Echoing footsteps. Shadows of soldiers dragging him forward. The city awakens to the sound of judgment. Voiceover slow, weighty. The lamb stood before lions, and none could see that he was the only one free. Music swells, a haunting choir. Distant thunder rolling beneath visual montage. Pilate washing his hands. Peter weeping alone in the shadows. Judas running through the night, the coins scattering across the ground. Mary watching from afar, her hands trembling. Voiceover quiet, breaking. Love had been betrayed, yet love refused to die. Camera pans upward. The first light of dawn touches Jerusalem's rooftops. The cross's shadow stretches long across the ground, though no wood has yet been lifted. Voiceover final line, soft as wind. The path was set. The crown of thorns waited, and heaven held its breath. Music fades into silence. The screen slowly turns to black. The screen bursts with light, sunlight piercing through storm clouds. The wind roars, dust and ash swirling through the streets of Jerusalem. The sound of drums echoes like thunder, voiceover powerful, urgent. Every prophecy was leading here. Every breath, every miracle, every tear. All for this moment, visual. The cross being carved from rough wood. Hands hammering, splinters flying. The sound of each strike blends with the heartbeat of the music. Cut to Jesus beaten. Blood mixing with sweat, yet his eyes remain calm. The camera never shows his face fully, only glimpses of his profile, his footsteps, his shadow stretching long behind him, voiceover deep, reverent. He carried what no one else could. Not just wood, not just pain, but the weight of every broken soul. Quick flashes. Peter crying out in the crowd, reaching through the soldiers. Mary, watching, silent, her tears catching the light. Roman soldiers shouting commands. The people torn, some cheering, some weeping, voiceover fierce yet mournful. The world that once shouted Hosanna now screamed for blood, but he did not curse them. He prayed for them. Music builds, violins rising, drums pounding. The sky grows darker with each note. Visuals shift in rhythm with the beat, the hammer hitting the nails. The crown of thorns pressed down, the cross lifted against the storm. Lightning flashes, revealing 1,000 faces looking up in fear and awe. Asterisk, voiceover low, trembling. Creation itself seemed to cry out. The sun hid its face. The earth trembled beneath the weight of the Creator's pain. Cut 2. A montage of memories. Jesus healing the blind, calming the storm, feeding the hungry. Those same faces now stare in disbelief. Watching love suffer in silence, voiceover soft, breaking. The hands that gave life now stretched open, giving it away. The music pauses, just wind and a heartbeat. Visual. Jesus' hand releases, fingers loosening slowly. The sound fades into stillness, voiceover barely above a whisper before glory. There must be surrender. Suddenly a burst of sound. Thunder cracks. The temple curtain rips in two. The ground splits. Light floods the screen like an explosion of grace. Voiceover strong. Rising in that single breath, history was rewritten. Heaven opened. Death trembled. Montage resumes, faster, more emotional. The cross silhouetted against lightning. The disciples falling to their knees. A Roman guard dropping his spear, whispering truly, this was the Son of God. It's the world holding still. Caught between grief and glory, asterisk music swells to its peak, a full choir now, blending sorrow and hope. Voiceover final, powerful line. This was not defeat. It was victory disguised as death. Light fades, leaving only the faint outline of the cross against a burning sky. Silence falls deep, sacred, unbroken. Fade to black. The screen is completely black. No sound, no music. Just stillness then. A faint breath. A single heartbeat. And from the edge of darkness, a golden shimmer of light begins to grow. Voiceover soft. Calm, filled with wonder. When the world went silent, heaven began to sing. Visual. The stone in front of the tomb, still heavy, unmoved. The morning fog drifts across it like a veil. The faint sound of wind brushes the earth. Voiceover gentle, rising. They thought it was over. They thought love had lost. But love was never buried. Only waiting. Light grows brighter, piercing through the cracks of the tomb. The air shimmers with warmth and color. The music begins to build, a soft hum that feels alive. Cut 2. Mary Magdalene walking through the garden at dawn. Her tears glisten as the sun breaks the horizon. She pauses. Something feels different. The ground glows beneath her feet, voiceover slow, emotional. Grief turned to wonder. Tears turned to light. And in a moment, the impossible became truth. The camera glides toward the tomb. The stone trembles. Dust falls in slow motion. Then, with the weight of eternity, it rolls away. Blinding light pours out, not harsh, but pure, soft. Eternal voiceover, reverent whisper, the grave could not hold him. The end was never the end. Visual montage. The disciples rushing toward the light, faces filled with disbelief and joy. The empty linen folded neatly. The cross now standing in the sunrise, not as a symbol of death, but of victory. Children laughing in the streets, the sea shimmering under morning gold, voiceover stronger. Filled with hope, the same hands that were pierced now reach for the world once more, not in pain, but in promise. Your music rises, choirs blending with the sound of waves and wind. The camera pans high above the city, showing Jerusalem bathed in sunlight. Voiceover softer now. Emotional. Every sacrifice, every tear, every scar was worth it. Because through his wounds, the world found healing. Cut to a wide shot, the hill of Calvary, empty except for 3 crosses. Birds fly across the sky. The light now fills everything. Voiceover final, sacred whisper. Death was defeated. Hope was reborn. And love. Walked out of the tomb, the music swells to its final note, a pure, lingering chord that fades into quiet peace. On-screen text appears slowly. The Chosen, Season 6. Fall 2026, The journey to the cross voiceover final line. Gentle as breath, this is not the end. This is the beginning of everything. Fade to white. Silence, silence. Then a slow fade from white to soft gold, a horizon. Kissed by light, the sound of wind returns. Gentle and alive, brushing through olive trees. A faint echo of a heartbeat hums beneath it. Slow, peaceful, steady. Voiceover, soft, reverent. The story didn't end at the cross. It began there. Visual, the empty tomb in the distance, now surrounded by wildflowers. A white cloth drifts through the air, carried by the morning breeze. Voiceover calm, reflective. He was betrayed, broken, buried, but not defeated. The wind carries whispers, voices faint and layered like prayers from generations past. He lives. He lives. Camera glides upward over the hills. The city of Jerusalem glows in soft sunrise light. Bells begin to ring faintly in the distance. Voiceover warm, resolute. The cross was never the end of the story, it was the door. Flash montage in rhythm with a slow drum beat, water rippling under sunlight, a child's hand reaching for another, a candle lit in darkness. The pages of scripture turning slowly. A distant mountain bathed in gold, voiceover whisper, filled with hope. What began with 12 became a world redeemed, and the music begins to rise again, not tragic this time, but alive. A soft choir hums, layered with strings that sound like a sunrise in motion. Visual, a single figure walks along the shoreline, faceless, clothed in white, steps light upon the sand. The waves gently touch his feet, voiceover quiet, tender. He walked once more, not in sorrow, but in promise. Every step forward was an invitation. The figure stops and looks toward the horizon, light reflecting in the water. A moment of perfect stillness. Voiceover final whisper. He is risen. The choir blooms into full harmony for 3 seconds, then fades abruptly into silence. Text appears on screen, glowing faintly like embers. The Chosen, Season 6. The journey to the cross coming fall 2026 underneath. In smaller letters, before glory came pain. Before victory came the cross. One final sound, a single heartbeat, then nothing. Black screen.